You manage to get down a fair bit of the salty fish, deciding that it's actually not that bad. Sure, you might not choose it at a buffet or anything, but it's a hell of a lot better than what it could be, all things considered. After a while, Loki passes you a bowl of some kind of broth. This, you decide, is much better. It kind of tastes like beef, and it's also pretty salty. And it's full of little flakes of something that surprisingly looks similar to seaweed. The monotonous voice of the young giant prince catches your attention.
A mortal? I've never seen one before. Not in real life.
Maybe you should be paying more attention. You'd really like to know how that train of conversation got started.
Well, of course not, dearest. We stopped keeping mortals ages ago, after Odin Allfather decided to overstep himself and cut off our access to other realms. And they're hardly worth the effort it takes to keep them in working condition.
Oh my god. All those ancient myths about people getting stolen away by elves, trolls, and giants, they must be true. These giants actually used to keep human pets. You guess that explains why no one's really batting an eye at Loki's decision to keep you around. That may also explain Skadi's comments in the bath chamber about Loki being old-fashioned.
I want to look at it. Ask it to stand.
She can understand you.
There's amusement in Loki's voice, and you wish that you had a fork so that maybe you could stab him in the leg or something.
Stand, mortal.
Reluctantly, you clamber to your feet on top of your little nest, and then your eyes land on something at the table that nearly makes you scream, and you clasp your free hand over your mouth, eyes wide. It's the head of a dragon. Or maybe a giant snake or something. Whatever it is, the head alone is possibly at least 3 feet long, and the rest of its body is stretched out along the table, skinned and cooked. Its head is covered in slick scales and has weird, spiny fins sticking out from behind its jaw, and its open mouth is filled with rows upon rows of razor-sharp, pointed teeth. A bulky giant further down the table begins to laugh.
The mortal has never seen Shuma before, it seems.
There are no more sea serpents loose on Midgard. Not since Thor and I bound Jormungandr.
An impressive feat, that.
This giant is on the smaller side, and he's wearing a vest, so you assume maybe he isn't a soldier. That's how that works, right? You really need a study guide or something. And then there's the fact that you've been eating sea serpent. Alien sea serpent. This thing looks like it's probably super poisonous. You stare at your bowl, suddenly apprehensive. Loki notices this.
Drink. You will take what is provided.
Apparently, some of the others have noticed too, because a pointy-toothed female from down the table is now leering at you with a decidedly vicious expression.
Be grateful you aren't on the table yourself, little warm skin.
You choke on your mouthful of broth, covering your mouth as you start to cough, attempting to maybe maintain some shred of dignity. Christ, you're humiliating yourself. Does it even matter? These aliens are probably going to end up murdering you. Most of the giants at your end of the table laugh at your shock, and even Loki snickers. Some savior you are. God, freaking making my life miserable. Bylester cocks his head to the side, the corner of his lips curling up into a smile. It's the first shred of emotion you've seen him express.
They are playing with you, mortal. We do not eat humans. Or at least, we have not done so in thousands of years.
His smirk deepens slightly, and his mother scowls.
Really, my son, you should not suggest such things. None of the civilized tribes ever ate the creatures. How distasteful.
You're pretty sure she doesn't think it's distasteful for the same reason that you think it's distasteful.
It's hard to enjoy a meal that can argue with you.
The giant who says this is on the taller side, and his skin is slightly more gray than Loki. A different variety, maybe? It almost sounds like he's speaking from experience, and you shudder. Then Loki's hand is on your shoulder, and he gives you a subtle, gentle squeeze. A threat or a reassurance?
Sit, girl. If Bylester wishes to examine you further, he can do it after we've eaten.
Your heart rate skyrockets at the thought of being examined by any of these giants, especially without Loki around. But then he squeezes your shoulder again.
You can stop by my chambers this evening if you wish, brother.
He isn't going to leave you alone with them. Relieved, you sink back into your nest, your bowl of broth still in hand. You aren't going to ask what's inside it. It's better to not know, honestly. If fishy means a freaking sea monster, then you can only begin to imagine what beefy might mean. Honestly, this pet bed on the floor is starting to seem better and better. You were kind of hidden away, at least. And no matter how super messed up it might be, Loki's occasional pats on the head are actually kind of soothing. Like a nice little, hey, I'm not gonna go off and let giants eat you reminder. It's nice. And it's warm, too. You think about what Loki told you, that the frost giants aren't totally immune to the cold either. Watching him from your place on the floor, you decide that he's a pretty amazing actor. He looks totally at ease, smiling and taunting and laughing as if it's just another day for him. Wow, being royalty must suck if this is the kind of dinner party he's used to. There are about 1 million questions swirling around inside your brain, and you're just itching to get back to Loki's bedroom and see if he'll answer some of them. That is, if he can. It sounds like he might not exactly be an expert on Jotunheim himself, which is pretty worrying. It's not like you can just whip out your phone and start Googling everything. Hey, Siri, are Jotunheim sea monsters poisonous to humans? And then, you've also got to deal with the possibility of Loki's kid brother coming by to take a closer look at the exotic little pet. And that kind of puts a damper on things. So far, you haven't been able to get a good read on Bylester. He doesn't seem quite as aggressive as some of the others, but that doesn't mean he isn't just as dangerous. You also can't tell how old he actually is. He's only around the same height as Skadi, and he looks kind of lanky, which leads you to believe that he isn't finished growing. Damn, if he's over 7 feet tall now, how tall is he gonna get? Hopefully you'll be long gone after you have the chance to find that out. A giant prince's angsty teen phase isn't exactly something you want to stick around to see. Although that brings up another question. How old is Loki, relatively? Because he looks pretty young too. If you'd seen him in his human-looking form just out on the street one day, you would have guessed he was maybe in his 20s. Must be one of the perks to being immortal. They're talking about this Valva lady, who's apparently on the way with an entire entourage. From what you gather, she's some kind of oracle, and it sounds like she's a really big deal. To the extent that they might legitimately make Loki king if she says that's what's supposed to happen. This is crazy. But then you know of countless cases in human history where one relative murdered another to take the throne, and everyone in the kingdom just went along with it. It isn't exactly like Loki's breaking some new ground here. You also wonder if it has less to do with what the Valva actually says, and more to do with Loki's powers. Because aside from all the weird ice doors and frozen weapons, you haven't seen any of the other frost giants doing anything even vaguely magical. Maybe the queen just needs an excuse to save face, to hide the fact that she's afraid that Loki will actually kill her and Bylester if they get in his way. You really don't want to be in the middle of all this drama. If he gets himself assassinated, you're toast.
Would you like for me to escort you back to your chambers, my prince?
But of course, lovely Skadi.
Scowling, you glare up at him. She isn't that lovely. And she has a terrible personality.
Come, mortal.
Silently, you deposit your now empty bowl on the table and scurry to keep up with their long strides, because there's no way in hell you're getting left behind. As you follow them down the icy halls, trying not to slip, you turn a critical eye to Skadi's form. She's wearing a fair bit of clothes, though the cloth seems kind of thin. Her dress is essentially just a long straight tube with open shoulder sleeves and belted to show off her waist. You notice for the first time that there's a knife tucked into her belt, carved out of what appears to be jade, and your face blanches, as if you need anything more to worry about. So, what's her social ranking, exactly? Whatever it is, she's clearly looking to improve it.
You must go hunting with me sometime, future king. If you are around long enough, of course,
She says as she reaches for the door.
I am certain that I will be.
I am so sick of this. He actually gets rid of her pretty quickly, and you heave a huge sigh of relief when the door closes behind her. You never thought you'd actually be relieved to be trapped in a room with him, but here you are. Loki stretches, reminding you somewhat of a cat, and sighs deeply. Maybe he had been more tense than he let on.
You might as well get on the bed. Keep it warm for me. I have no doubt that Bylester will come calling if he can manage to give his mother the slip. It seems you've already managed to find an admirer.
Great. You're too tired and stressed to argue with the whole bed-warming job, so you climb into the heap of fur covers and you pull a heavy woolen blanket around your shoulders. Does it still count as wool if it doesn't come from a sheep? So, do you plan on letting me actually eat like a normal human being at some point, or... Loki snickers, which is an immediate bad sign.
No.
You're gonna keep hand-feeding me?
Yes.
You can almost envision a vein throbbing in your temple from your frustration, just like a cartoon character. Why?
I find it entertaining.
Eyes narrowing, you glare at him suspiciously. Are you getting off on this? What the hell, Loki? He just laughs and unfastens his cloak, letting it drop to the floor in a heap. He then goes to rummage in a trunk at the foot of the bed, which must have been placed there while you were gone.
I'm glad to see that dinner has revitalized you so greatly, mortal. What a shame it would be if you were to die.
Your jaw clenches at the not-so-subtle reminder that he's your only lifeline, and you keep your tirade internal. You're definitely going to bite him harder next time. With his cloak and the belts that held it in place now gone, his wounded chest is on full display, and you frown. Why did you go like that? You look like you're half dead, you know? Won't that just make it more likely for them to take you out while you're in bad shape?
I am going for the opposite effect. If I can survive this and have the power and confidence to stroll in and demand the throne mere days later, then how likely is it that any of them can finish me off?
That does make sense, actually. There's a knocking sound from outside, and Loki waves the door open. Bylester steps in, and it looks like he's gone to the effort of changing into casual wear, because he's wearing a tunic and leggings made out of some kind of leather, his hair unbound and falling around his face. In fact, it almost looks like he snuck out after he's supposedly gone to bed, and you start to wonder if the Queen keeps him on a tight leash. At least he doesn't have any knives, that you can see.
Bylester, you wish to see my mortal? Stand up, pet.
Bastard. You chant in your head as you force yourself to stand on shaking legs, the blanket still clutched around your shoulders. Bastard, bastard, bastard! Why does he have to be so terrible? The younger giant steps closer to you, a look of fascination in his red eyes. Wonderful. Mr. Apathy finally shows interest in something, and it's me. Of course.
She is so small. Are all mortals this height?
Most of their women are near to her in height, though she is slightly on the shorter side. I would be considered tall for a mortal man, though not unnaturally so.
Bylester glances at Loki, as if he's somehow forgotten that his older brother is practically a foot shorter than him.
I see. How long can they live?
No more than a century.
That is longer than I thought. This one looks young.
Well, she is, but she is fully grown.
Part of you is insulted and annoyed that they're discussing you right in front of your face, but another part of you is grateful that Loki is the one doing all the talking. Bylester leans closer, and you tremble as he reaches out and touches your cheek.
They truly are warm and soft.
He says, slightly surprised. Oh God, you think, your stomach churning, the waves of panic beginning to rush through your veins. This is too much attention. You weren't prepared for him to actually touch you. Bylester takes a deep breath, cocking his head to the side. It's weirdly reminiscent of Loki, considering they're only half-siblings, and they've never met before. But it makes you wonder what he'd look like in a more human form.
She smells frightened.
Damn it! You'd completely forgotten the whole scent thing.
She is frightened. Humans are weak creatures, ill-suited for this climate. One must be careful to keep them alive.
Loki replies, finally moving closer to you. There's a slightly hard edge to his voice, and Bylester's hand drops away.
Are they like us in form? Underneath all this?
Okay, wow, rude.
They are, though I will not disrobe her. It is cold, and I do not want her to get frostbite.
He grins at you, and you're overwhelmed by the urge to punch him right in his smug, handsome face. The younger giant nods thoughtfully.
We have depictions of them, of course. But this is much different. Actually seeing one in the flesh.
Queen Farbuti was alive during the days of human thraldom. You should turn your questions to her if you find the mortals so interesting.
Apathy smooths back over Bylester's features.
Mother does not like discussing the old days. It makes her bitter over what we've lost.
You suppress a snort. Like she's a ray of sunshine the rest of the time?
You say you have depictions of the humans. Is there an archive in the palace, Bylester?
There is. I can show you in the morning, if you wish.
I would be extremely grateful.
That's apparently meant to be a dismissal, because with one more long, curious look at you, the prince turns and leaves. You realize you're still shaking, and you sit heavily on the bed as Loki kicks off his boots, fading back into human paleness, the patterns of his skin smoothing over. You're never going to get used to that.
Take off your boots, and your jacket as well. You will not need them in the bed.
Yeah, about that. Loki crouches in front of you, staring you down, and you freeze like a deer in the headlights.
Very well,
He says, after a moment or two of tense silence. Grabbing you by the ankle, he stands suddenly, and you fall onto your back. He tears off one of your boots and drops it to the floor, and then captures your other flailing foot and does the same.
Do I need to treat you like an unruly child?
He asks pleasantly, one of your ankles still caught in his grip.
Or will you be a good girl and do it yourself?
You huff, putting every bit of spite you can muster into your glare, but your fingers find your zipper anyway. I'll do it myself. Your ankle is released, but before you can feel relieved, he leans over you, his hands on either side of your head.
I knew you'd make the smart decision.
His smile is smug and your face heats. He's so freaking big and he's all up in your space. And his eyes are sparkling like he's about to do something you probably won't find nearly as entertaining as he will.
You are such a good little pet, after all.
And that's when you finally snap and slap him across the face.